When I first arrived in Japan, I already had a few friends and acquaintances here. That's why I came. I thought, social life, no worries, I'll be fine. I was not fine. Turns out, uprooting your life and moving 6,000 miles away from everything and everyone you've ever known can take a bit of an emotional toll, and having a handful of friends you've met a few times is no substitute for the relationships that you've spent years building up back home. One thing I discovered early on was that people in Tokyo like to fill up their schedules in advance. So while they were happy to accommodate me with welcome parties and stuff when I first arrived, the more I became a resident, the less special treatment I got. Which is fine, I don't want to be treated as a guest in the country that I now live in, but it became increasingly difficult to have any kind of social life at all when I would message someone to say, hey, let's hang out, and get the reply, oh yeah, I'm free in 2 weeks' time. Next month was also fairly common. I was told, let's meet before the end of the year once, and I think it was still September. That came as quite a shock, because I'd moved to Japan pretty much straight out of university, and at university it had been so easy to gather a group of people who'd want to go out and party right then and there. I started to question myself and all these relationships. Did they really not like me? Was 2 weeks' time code for never, please stop bothering me? Was I being too pushy by inviting people out at all? I came to realize that no, they didn't hate me. This is just how socializing works in Tokyo. Making plans in advance is the norm. I've heard from other people that moved here that they had exactly the same experience, and you just have to adjust. But what does adjusting look like? Well, if you can only meet your friends once a fortnight at the most, the solution is to have more friends. So before we start on the social journey, you're going to need 2 apps on your phone, and those are Line and Instagram. Line is the messaging app in Japan that everyone uses for everything, both private life and work. It's like WhatsApp, but somehow more Asian. You can't live without it. And Instagram, do I need to explain Instagram? The particular importance of Instagram in this social landscape is that by making regular posts, especially stories, the 24-hour time restricted posts that are meant to show what you're doing right now, even if it's hard to meet someone in person, you can still mutually, casually keep track of what you're both doing, which helps you to feel connected and can provide talking points which can become excuses to hang out or just reasons to stay in touch. So with that sales pitch out of the way, what did I do to start forging friendships in Japan? Well, before I even moved, I was doing 2 things. Firstly, I was going to Japanese conversation groups in London where I lived, which is where I first got to properly talk to Japanese people and non-Japanese people who had some kind of connection to Japan. This was great motivation. It made Japan feel like a more real, tangible place. And I kept going despite the fact that my Japanese was very bad at the time, so I'm very grateful to all the people who put up with my very broken speech back then. Secondly, I was using the language exchange app Hello Talk, which has a bit of a mixed reputation because too many people treat it as a dating app, which is not. That's against the rules, it's for study. It kind of works like Twitter in that you make posts with text and pictures about what you're doing, with the twist being that you write in the language you're learning and you can get corrections from native speakers of that language. You can also talk to those native speakers and maybe become friends. The fact that so many people flaunt the rules and treat it like Tinder can actually work to your advantage, because if you don't do that, you might be in the minority and actually stand out and people will want to talk to you. That's how it worked for me anyway. I met a couple of Japanese people in the UK through this, and I made a couple of acquaintances in Japan who were eager to meet up after I arrived. A lot of the people that I met in the UK, both through the app and through the conversation group, eventually moved back to Japan, and we still keep in touch. Thinking about it, most of my closest friends here are people who I met through Hello Talk, or people who I met through people who I met through Hello Talk, or people who I met through people who I met through people who I met through Hello Talk, or people that I met through people I met through people that I met through people that I... You get the idea. The important thing is that it provided those first few interactions that became the starting point for building my network in Japan. So I do recommend it. Just play by the rules, don't be creepy, and also don't give the app your location information because it has privacy issues. If apps aren't your style, you do have opportunities to meet people in person, or at least you did in a pre-COVID world. I'm sure they'll be back. There are countless international meetups in Japan where foreigners in Japan and Japanese people who want to talk to foreigners in Japan meet up in a pub or a bar or a park or somewhere, or increasingly over video chat. Again, you can get the same problem of weird people with ulterior motives showing up, so I found the best way to use these meetups is to find a few people who you like and trust and go and hang out with them away from the meetups. Then if you can meet more people through those people, you can stop going to meetups entirely because your social circle will start expanding naturally. However, my favorite way to meet new people is through hobbies. Do you have hobbies and interests? If you do, there's a good chance there's people in Japan who have the same ones and you'll probably get on well with them. My hobby is going to live music, especially going to shows at tiny little venues with tiny little bands that no one has heard of. to seek out the sonic experiences that exist in the Japanese underground. It is a beautiful, vibrant and creative scene, and there's a whole community around it, both of musicians who collaborate to make music together, and of fans, people like me, who love to go and seek out these hidden treasures. There's nothing quite like asking someone, hey, have you heard of this band that has like 600 Twitter followers and plays venues with capacities of 50 people, and hearing the answer, yes, I love them! Kindred spirits, man. Now, when you're trying to communicate with someone, it certainly helps to have a common language. There are people, quite a lot of people, in Tokyo especially, who speak English, and you can kinda get by with only English. But I have to ask, why would you? Out of all the people who live in Japan, such a small sliver speak even conversational English. And those people tend to be somewhat internationally minded, maybe they lived abroad or something, so they're not necessarily representative of Japanese people as a whole. If you're living in Japan relying only on English, there are so many people that you'll just never get to talk to, and so many experiences that will just pass you by. I found that even my Japanese friends who do speak English tend to not want to. It's a lot of effort, and when it comes to opening up and having those deep friendship conversations, they don't want to speak English. They don't want to speak English. Who would want to speak English? Having a decent Japanese language ability has been the key to feeling like I have real friends here, people I can trust and rely on. I have another video that will teach you all about how to learn Japanese, and it is totally worth doing if you're going to be here for any extended period of time. The more Japanese you can speak, the wider variety of doors will open to you, and the more fun and interesting your Japanese life will become. Japanese language ability is invaluable. If it sounds like I've thought all this through a bit much, it's because I have. I'm naturally introverted, and I'd always coasted through just making do with the people who happen to be around me. Coming to Tokyo was the first time I'd ever had to make a real concerted effort to forge new relationships and become the kind of person that people would want to hang around. That meant a lot of personal growth in a short space of time, because if I didn't act now, I'd be left on my own. The key part of that attitude change was deciding on the day I arrived that I was going to say yes to every invitation, no matter to what, to where, with whom, as long as it didn't seem like a cult or something, because you have to watch out for those. In retrospect, this was absolutely the right move, because while yes, I ended up at some crappy, boring parties, I also went to so many places I met so many unique and unexpected people who have made my life in Tokyo so great and make me think every day that I'm so glad that I made the choice to come here. I'd taken this yes man philosophy so much to heart that the first time I did have to say no to something, which was when I was invited to Skiabashi Jiro, the world famous sushi restaurant run by world famous chef Jiro, who has his own documentary and where lunch cost $400, I agonized for hours. I'd just spent all my money moving to Japan. I knew that I couldn't really afford it. I knew it was too expensive, but it would have been once in a lifetime. Maybe I should have said yes. Maybe if I'd done so, I'd be telling you a great story now. We can only imagine. That said, I have plenty more stories to share of stuff that did actually happen, so please like this video, subscribe for more, and leave a comment below if there's anything you want to hear about in more detail, because I want to tell you. Thanks for watching, bye, ja ne.